welcome back to another edition of Homemade. And today, you all, we are making one of, again, my favorite desserts. And we are going to make some caramel turtle apples. And these apples, you all, they are so simple. The way that I prepare my apples, it may not be the typical way, but what I like to do is I like to wrap my apple. I found that the wrap actually works better for me. And it is a simple process, you all. I'll still prepare my caramel the same way that I would prepare my dip. The only thing is we aren't going to dip our apples into the caramel as soon as it gets done cooking. We are going to spread it evenly onto our baking sheet, and we are going to let it sit for some minutes to get to the consistency where we will be able to wrap our apples and the caramel isn't as liquefied as it is when we bring it off the stove. This batch that we'll be preparing today, it typically can yield about 12 to 15 nice sized apples, and I'm going to go ahead and show you the size of the apples that I have. So I do have some pretty nice sized apples. I'm going to go ahead and combine everything here on the table, and we're going to transfer it to our stove. We're going to cook this until it reaches 240 degrees. That is the softball stage. Once it reaches the softball stage, we are going to pour it onto our baking sheet. Now, our baking sheet will already be prepared. We're going to spray it with our PAM Nonstick cooking spray, and that is so that the caramel will release easier. I have 1 cup of granulated sugar, 1 cup of brown sugar. We are going to use 1 can of condensed milk, 1 cup of corn syrup, and we are going to use 10 tablespoons of butter. Now, we are using real butter for this recipe. That's really important. We are going to use our vanilla flavor for this, but we are going to add the flavor in at the end because we want to retain our vanilla flavor. And if you put it in too early, sometimes the flavor can cook out of it. So we're going to go ahead and prepare this, and we are going to transfer it to the stove. Now, it's really important that you remember you do want to cook this on medium heat. And you can combine all of this at one time. You don't have to melt your butter, then put in everything. I like to just go ahead and put everything in at one time. Whisk it until it's really combined. And now we'll put in our sugar. And I will make this suggestion: when you are making your apples or your caramel for your apples, I suggest using a designated pot or saucepan for all of your candy. That way you don't have to worry about the spices that could possibly be ingrained in your pan seeping over into your caramel. So just like to whisk that. Get it mixed in really well. And remember, you do need a candy thermometer for this. I'm going to go ahead, put this onto the stove, and let it start cooking, and then we'll come back, look at it, and I'll show you the consistency and the color that you want your caramel. Our caramel has cooked, and it did reach 240 degrees. Now, my intention was to show you the cooking process, but it reached it so fast, you all, it really shocked me. So this is how our caramel looks, and if you notice, I do have my candy thermometer there. So I've already sprayed my baking sheet, and now I'm just going to pour my caramel onto my baking sheet. Make sure that I spread it out evenly. And it will look a little greasy, you guys, but don't worry about that. So we're going to spread this out, and we are going to let this cool until it gets to the point to where we will be able to press an indentation into it, and I'll show you all what I mean. Okay, you all, so now while our caramel is cooking, I'm going to go ahead and show you my water gets really, really, really hot. So I typically just try to run my apples under the water for about a minute or so, and this is just to get that outer waxy coating off, because you do want to make sure that you get that off as much as you possibly can. I just kind of like to wipe it off really, really, really well. Make sure that I've got all of it off. And I'll put these into the refrigerator because I want my apples to be as cold as possible before I wrap them. We're back. Our caramel has cooled. Our apples have been in the fridge chilling, and I've already stuck my skewers inside my apples. The way you want to tell if your caramel is ready, if you can see, I pressed my finger in there, made an indentation, and the indentation is still there. That lets you know that your caramel is ready. I did let my caramel cool for about 2 hours. So I'll cut it there. And now I'm going to put on my gloves. For this, I do like to use gloves for this particular process. I also like to keep a bowl of water handy and also a napkin. So what I'll do is I'll just take my spatula and I will pick up the piece of caramel, and you can see it releases pretty well from the pan. And this is our wrap. I like to just kind of flatten it out as much as I can. And that way, once I do wrap it onto my apple, it goes really well. So you'll just mold your caramel over your apple. And you see how easy that was, you all? Our caramel isn't sliding. I have two things for my Rocky Road apples, and that is chopped nuts and marshmallows. I'll roll it in my chopped nuts. I'll take a few marshmallows and I'll do the same thing. I'll just kind of press them into different spots on my apple. So we are back. We have finished covering our apples, and I did put these back in the refrigerator. In this bag, I do have my milk chocolate. I'm going to cut a hole in that. And what I like to do is just take my apple and just turn it around in a circle while I am gently squeezing the bag. And now I'm going to do the same with my white. So I don't cut a huge hole in them, you all, just enough to push out a little. And this is our Rocky Road apple. We cover these apples. They are awesome. They are delicious, and they are not running. If you want to keep seeing these type recipes, make sure you share, like, and subscribe to our channel. When you make these apples, make sure you leave your comments, leave your pictures. Let me know if the caramel worked out for you. Let me know if you like the wrap method or if you would prefer to continue to dip them. As I always say, cooking is as easy or as hard as you make it. But I promise you, if you just keep it simple, be yourself, life in itself can be so much easier. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Homemade. And until next time, continue to be great.